All right, for our next part, should be on page 52 of your notebooks. We're going to have I can solve two-step equations. Okay, so we just went over how to do one-step equations, and what makes those ones one-step equations is because we only have to do one of these in-between steps. So like in this case, we only had to do one number we were getting rid of. Now, for two steps, we're going to have to focus on two numbers that we're getting rid of. So for this one, that means that we're going to focus on more than one step. So again, our goal throughout this, just as it was for one-step equations, is to isolate the variable. So just like with one-step equations, for two-step equations, we also want to make sure that we isolate the variable. Can't really see that yellow that well, but I am outlining it just in some way, make it stand out on your sheet of paper as well. Okay, so just like with our one-step equations, for step one, we're going to use the opposite operation. Use the opposite operation. And with this, I'm going to add a little bit of a note here. We're going to use the opposite operation, and this is going to be the number on the same side as the variable, but not attached to the variable. And this might seem a little bit confusing at the moment, but it will make more sense. And this will just be like a reference point for you to return to should you need to. So for step two, we're going to bring down the variable. This time it's also going to be with the attached number and the equal sign. So these kind of seem like long and lengthy steps, but really once you get the hang of it, they're not going to be as intimidating. For step three, you're again going to do the opposite operation of the number attached to the variable. So notice this is basically one step where we just have to use the opposite operation. Two step is where we also have to use another opposite operation. So for step four, this is where we bring down the variable, equal sign, and solve for the variable. Okay, so we have all these steps, but what do they really mean? Well, let's take a look. So again, our goal is to isolate the variable, get it by itself. And our first example, so example number 1, we're going to have, 3 plus x over 9 equals 2. All right, so if we look at our first step tells us that we need to use the opposite operation. This is going to be on the same side as our variable. So if we were to like split this through the equal sign, it's going to be on the same side as our variable. So our variable is here. So it's either 3 or 9. But it's the one that's not attached to the variable. So that means we're going to start with our 3. It's very important to know which number you're starting with. It's always going to be the one that's by itself, but on the same side as the variable. So the opposite of a positive is a negative. So we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. This should look very similar to our one-step equation so far. These 3's cancel out. Now, step 2 tells us to bring down the variable with the attached number, so x over 9, and our equal sign. Here in between, we're going to solve for these. So 2 minus 3 gives us negative 1. Okay, so now this should look like a one-step. So all we've done is gotten rid of one part of it, and then now it should look like a one-step equation. So if we have this division, that means the opposite of this division will be multiplication. So we multiply both sides by 9. That cancels out these 9's. We're going to bring down the variable, the equal sign, and solve for the variable. So negative 1 times 9 gives us negative 9. So our final solution is x equals negative 9. We have the x isolated by itself, and we have solved. So quick recap. We first dealt with the number that's on the same side as the variable, but is not attached to the variable. That turned it into a one-step. We did the opposite operations, and we solved for our variable. Okay, let's look at a second example. Let's try example 2. For example 2, let's do negative 14 equals 3b minus 2. Okay, this time you notice that the variable is on the other side, the right side. Doesn't matter, still same thing. So if we were to split this, we're going to start with our variable on the same, or our number on the same side as our variable, but not attached. So that means we're going to start with our 2. The opposite of subtraction is addition. So we're going to add 2 to both sides. Then that makes these 2's cancel out. We're going to bring down this 3b and our equal sign. Negative 14 plus 2 gives us a negative 12. Now, here's where we have no symbol in between. There's no symbol in between these. So they're right next to each other, which means they're being multiplied. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So then these 3's cancel out. We bring down our variable and our equal sign. Negative 12 divided by 3 gives us negative 4. So you can choose to either leave your answer like this, or if that bothers you, you can also switch it around. Still the same thing. Doesn't matter. I don't care which. I will mark both of them as correct. So quick recap on this. We dealt with our step 1, opposite operation of our 2, because it's on the same side as our variable but not attached. That turns it into a one-step equation. We have multiplication, so the opposite is division. Divide, and we have solved b equals negative 4.